Hello, my name is Chris Woodpan. I'm the owner of Ingot Film Studios, and I am working with Hero Time to make a bunch of videos to help you get your products ready for print. So in this week's guide, I'm going to spend some time talking about bleed and safety margins and why it's important. We're basically going to be building a tarot size card using the document setup procedure I covered previously in Photoshop, and we're going to spend our time just kind of going over what is bleed and what are the safety margins. So without further ado, let's hop into Photoshop. So once we're in Photoshop, I'm going to open up the tarot card that we were working on last time during the How to Open Documents video. Now you can see here that the document is set up for bleed and safety, and it's sitting here on this top layer. So let's bring in the background. Boom, there we go. So now you can see the background lives here, and now it's going out to the bleed. And that's important because things move when we print. Large sheets of paper, these are very large sheets, and they can shift around, which means that the die cut, which is represented by the yellow line on the screen right now, it can actually come and it needs to be able to shift a little. That paper needs to have a little bit of wiggle room. So that's what the bleed is giving you. It's making sure that if you want to print to the edge, that if that shifts just a little bit, that it cuts and it actually has some color. Otherwise, you'll wind up with either white or black, depending on the background. Whatever is there is what's going to get shown on your beautiful cards that you just spent a lot of time laying out. So be sure to account for bleed and always ask your printers, no matter who they are, what your bleed tolerance is, so that way you can make sure that you have coverage in that area so that your artwork is going to come out the best it could possibly be. All right, so here we go. Now we've accounted for bleed. Let's go ahead and drop in our logo. Boom. That looks great. We definitely, we have the bleed covered, it's going to be great, but there's still a problem. So if we look here, this is what it looked like when we kind of started out with the no bleed, right? But if we add bleed, great, gives us that extra little bit. However, if we look at it with safety turned on, you can see that I've actually clipped our logo here. Now, what safety does is kind of the opposite of bleed. It's allowing for travel inside the cut line. Where bleed allows for travel outside the cut line and around, the safety margin actually allows for inside. So if it's not safe on the outside, that same zone is going to matter on the inside. So it's important to know that you want to work within that safety margin, so that way your artwork is guaranteed to be on that card. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to shrink this down and just make sure that it's in the middle. And a lot of it is usually due to poor planning. So a component that may have been completely useless if it would be cut off the bleed line is now rendered useful because we've accounted for the bleed. So I hope that helps you understand the difference of bleed and safety margin and why it is important to kind of follow the points. So in quick summary, remember that a bleed is the safety line in which it needs to go past the border of the object being printed, so that if the cut or the die manages to move a little bit, it'll still manage to have a nice clean edge. Safety margin is kind of the opposite of bleed in that it's the safety margin inside the width of the card or the item being printed, so that way things will always be centered, and it will also have the ability to kind of shift around a little bit and not be completely chopped off, cut, or lost. And stay tuned for the next episode. We're going to dive deep in how to use guides and set up that in Photoshop and Illustrator this time, so that you can use them effectively to kind of represent the different lines that you're trying to keep track of. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you on the next guide.